Take a $100 bill, lock it in a drawer, and walk away for 30 years. When you come back, that same bill might buy what $40 buys today. You didn't lose a single cent, and yet more than half of it is just gone. That slow, invisible leak is called inflation, the rate at which prices rise across the whole economy. Over the last 100 years or so, U.S. prices have risen on the order of 15-fold. A basket that cost $1 back then runs you somewhere around $15 now. Same stuff, 15 times the price tag. This isn't a glitch or a scandal. For most of modern history, gently rising prices have been the normal background hum of the economy. The real questions are how we measure it, what makes it speed up, and why a slow burn is healthy, while a fast one is feared. Let's get into it. First, you can't manage what you can't measure. So before anything else, how do you put a single number on the price of everything? The trick is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. The idea is almost grocery store simple. You build a pretend shopping basket meant to represent what a typical household buys. Then you track the total price of that exact basket, month after month, and watch how it moves. And this is real fieldwork. In the United States, government statisticians collect on the order of 80,000 prices every single month from thousands of stores, websites, and landlords. Each one is checked for the exact same item, size, and brand, so they're comparing like with like. Not everything counts equally. Each category gets a weight, based on how much of the average budget it eats. Housing is by far the heaviest. Shelter alone is more than a third of the whole index. A jump in rent moves the number far more than the same jump in, say, postage stamps. When a headline says inflation was 3% last year, this is what it means. That weighted basket cost 3% more than 12 months ago. Not every price rose 3%. Some soared, some fell. 3 is the blended average of the whole cart. An honest caveat, though. No single basket fits everyone. If you rent in a big city, drive a lot, or have kids in college, your personal inflation can run hotter than the headline. The CPI is an average, and almost nobody is exactly average. Okay, so we can measure it, but that only tells us prices went up, not why. And it turns out there are a few very different engines that can all drive the same number higher. The first engine is the one most people picture, demand pull. The classic line is too much money chasing too few goods. Think of a sold-out concert. The seats are fixed, so when demand explodes, the price doesn't politely stay put. It rockets. Now spread that across cars, houses, and flights at once. That's demand pull. The second engine pushes from the opposite side, cost push. It's not that buyers are frantic. It's that making things got more expensive. Energy is the classic culprit. Oil sits under nearly everything. The truck that ships your groceries, the factory that builds your phone, the plastic in the packaging. So when oil spikes, the cost ripples into thousands of products at once. Third engine is the deepest and the most argued about, the money supply itself. Prices are really just the exchange rate between money and stuff. If the amount of money grows much faster than the amount of actual goods, each dollar chases a smaller slice of the real economy. The money is worth less. Economist Milton Friedman summed up this view in one famous, deliberately provocative line. Whether it's literally always true is debated by economists to this day, but it captures a real idea. Print money far faster than the economy grows, and prices tend to follow. In the real world, these engines rarely run alone. The big inflation of the early 2020s is a good example. Supply chains snarled by a pandemic, energy spiking after a war, and a wave of stimulus money, all at once. Demand pull, cost push, and money, firing together. That's why it ran so hot. Which raises a strange question. If inflation eats your money, why don't central banks just aim for zero? Why is the official goal in most rich countries a steady 2% on purpose? 2% has become the magic number. The US Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, most major central banks publicly target around 2% a year. It's not a law of nature. It's a deliberate and fairly modern policy choice. First reason, zero is too close to the edge of a cliff. That cliff is deflation, falling prices. If you know everything will be cheaper next month, you delay buying. So does everyone else. Spending freezes, businesses cut jobs, incomes fall, and prices drop further. It's a downward spiral that's brutally hard to escape. The second reason is subtler. A little inflation greases the wheels of the job market. Cutting someone's actual paycheck is painful and rare, but with 2% inflation, an employer can hold a wage flat and let inflation gently lower its real value instead. It sounds harsh, but it lets the economy adjust without mass layoffs. So the goal isn't no inflation, it's the right amount. Think of a campfire. A small, steady flame keeps the economy warm and moving. Let it die to zero, and you risk freezing. Let it blaze out of control, and it burns down the value of everyone's money. Central banks are basically fire tenders. And there's a final reason too works. Predictability. If everyone, workers, businesses, lenders, can safely assume prices will rise about 2% a year, they can plan around it. Inflation only becomes truly destructive when it's high and surprising. A boring, predictable 2% is something the whole economy can quietly price in. That brings us to the part that hits closest to home, because even a calm, on-target 2%, the amount we just called healthy, is quietly working against your savings every single day. Here's the math that should be taught in every school. At just 2% a year, prices double in about 35 years. There's a shortcut called the rule of 70. Divide 70 by the inflation rate, and you get the years to double. It's a handy estimate, not an exact figure. Flip that around to your money. Picture $10,000 sitting in a checking account that pays no interest. After 20 years of 2% inflation, the balance still reads $10,000, but it buys what about $6,700 does today. The account lost nothing. Its real value bled out quietly. And this reframes a word everyone uses loosely: safe. Cash in a zero-interest account feels like the safe choice, but against inflation, perfectly stable cash is guaranteed to lose value over time. The safe-feeling option carries a hidden certain cost. That's the trap inflation sets, which is why this idea matters more than almost any other in personal finance. The real return. It's just your interest rate minus inflation. If a savings account pays you 1% while inflation runs 3%, your real return is -2%. You're earning money on paper and losing ground in real life. This is also why people don't just sit on cash. Historically, assets like stocks, real estate, and inflation-protected bonds have tended to grow faster than prices over the long run. That's not advice, and none of it is guaranteed. But it's the reason inflation pushes money out of mattresses and into markets. Here's the final twist that makes inflation so politically charged. It doesn't hit everyone the same way. For some people, rising prices are a quiet disaster. For others, they're a quiet gift. The clearest losers are savers and lenders holding fixed amounts of money. If you lent someone money or you're sitting on cash and bonds, you get paid back in dollars worth less than the ones you started with. The quiet winners are the opposite, borrowers with fixed-rate debt. If you owe a fixed amount, say a 30-year mortgage, inflation shrinks the real weight of that debt every year. You pay it back with cheaper future dollars, while your wages hopefully climb. And the single biggest borrower on earth, of course, is the government. Economist John Maynard Keynes warned about this nearly a century ago. His point was that inflation reshuffles wealth almost in secret, moving value from savers to borrowers, from the unwary to the prepared, without anyone voting on it. Most people feel the effect long before they understand the cause. And at the far extreme lies the nightmare: hyperinflation. This is when confidence in the money collapses entirely, and prices double in days, not decades. 1920s Germany, 2000 Zimbabwe, modern Venezuela, people carting wheelbarrows of cash to buy bread. It's rare, but it's the cliff at the end of the road. So here's where it nets out. Inflation isn't a villain, and it isn't a mistake. It's the price of a growing economy that prefers a small, steady warmth to the risk of freezing. A little is healthy, too much is theft, and the whole game is keeping it boring. Understanding it changes how you see your own money. You now know that safe cash isn't really safe, that 2% is a choice, and that the number on your statement is not the same as what it can buy. That gap between the number and the value is the whole story of inflation. If this finally made inflation click for you, do me a favor and follow Market Minute. Next time, I'll break down exactly how the people who run the economy try to slow it down and why raising interest rates is their main weapon. I'll see you there.